at 102.7 WNEW FM New York. Love rears its ugly head. Whew, how disgusting can that be? It's your buddy Dano, and it's the Late Show on the radio. We are getting set to join the world premiere of the new album by David Lee Roth, A Little Ain't Enough. And it's kind of not like a disjointed, disembodied thing. David Lee Roth himself is going to take you through the record, and David's got a lot to talk about. He's got a new band together, and he's going to be touring, although he's not coming to the United States first. He's going over to Europe and all throughout the world before he comes into our area. And I think he hits back in the States sometime in March or April. But hopefully David will get into that himself and explain what exactly is going on. Now, we're going to have the David Lee Roth album premiere from 10 o'clock to 11:30. Afterwards, you're going to have a chance to win some more tickets to the Trips Festival 25th anniversary with the Dinosaurs, featuring Papa John Creech, Merle Saunders, Spencer Dryden, Peter Albin, Barry Melton, and Max Creek. And, of course, there's a lot of great rock and roll coming your way, as well as the Midnight Perfect album side. So just stick around here for a while. We'll keep your entertainment level at the ultimate max. We're going to have a real good time. And I think from wherever it's coming from on this entire planet, it's kind of like a mysterious thing. It is about time for us to head there and go join the world premiere of the new album by David Lee Roth. It's called A Little Ain't Enough. So right now, let's go to the wonderful, entertaining, charming, and lovely Diamond David Lee Roth. This world premiere is an exclusive here at 102.7 WNEW FM in New York City.
Okay, let's have it quiet on the set, please. Everybody settle down. Places, everybody. This is the David Lee Roth A Little Ain't Enough world premiere special. Take one. It's showtime!
Yeah! Hi, and welcome to the very special world premiere broadcast of A Little Ain't Enough, the first album in 3 years from David Lee Roth. My name is Redbeard, and A Little Ain't Enough. Fred Astaire had it. Frank Sinatra certainly has it as well. Liberace, he had it too. And of course, Sammy Davis Jr. was oozing with it. What's this it that I'm referring to? Showmanship. I'm talking about having the kind of flair, pizzazz, magnetism, and dynamic charisma that refuses to be contained. The stage hasn't been built that could corral the personalities of those consummate showmen. And when you talk about rock and roll showmen in the 90s, there's one name that shoots right to the top of the list. Diamond David Lee Roth. And if ever there was a perfect album title, it's A Little Ain't Enough. Because this third solo album's title accurately describes the way David Lee Roth attacks his music and indeed everything he does. With David Lee Roth, everything is big, bold, and vivacious. Now, to properly set the stage for this 90-minute event, let's take a brief glimpse at David's career achievements up to this point. Since the release of Van Halen's debut offering in early 1978, David Lee Roth has found himself in the top 10 on 8 separate occasions. And counting sales with his former band, David Lee Roth has sold more than 24 million albums in North America alone, with songs like Runnin' with the Devil, Dance the Night Away, Jump, California Girls, and Just Like Paradise. It's no wonder that every single album that David Lee Roth has ever released has gone platinum. It's been 3 years now since we've heard from Diamond Dave, so before we get into the specifics behind A Little Ain't Enough, let's find out where he's been hiding out.
Well, I'll tell you, when I disappear, I take the ZZ Top approach. I take the Stanley Kubrick approach. When I am gone, I is truly gone. It's the idea of these days when you have videos and you have these worldwide tours. Geez, last tour we toured some 22 countries, just closest friends, you understand. But wow, the average life of an album used to be 100 days. Now with videos and everything, these things go on for 10 months, a year and a half. You tour the world, you got 4 singles happening and all with new clips and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a little bit of, you got to leave for a while to clear your mind. I don't create well under the microscope, and somebody aims a camera at me, I'm going to perform. It's genetic. It's built in. It's biologically impossible for me not to go do a little soft shoe or whatever, you know. So I remove myself completely from the public eye, and I don't create in the public eye. You know, I find it's best when I can kind of go underground, when I can disappear off to the sidelines, you know. Believe it or not, my eyes and ears are bigger than my mouth. Hey, no comment. I'm a big people watcher, you know, and I see what's happening around me. I can only do that if people aren't looking at me. If I'm the observer, and the best way for me to do that is to literally cut my hair and disappear for a while. So I go off to these faraway countries for a little bit. Most of my time, you know, 2/3 of it is spent in the studio, the proverbial basement, you know, working up songs and what have you, you know. I do a lot of, you know, going to the movies, listening to the radio, what have you, you know. But none of it is in the public eye. A lot of people are very surprised by this. How many...
Well, that's obviously there's my lead question. You know, because you are such
mercurial
and very gregarious. It's the thing that's endeared all of us to you since you cut your very first album with your first band. So it is hard to imagine for those of us who aren't with you 24 hours a day and don't see the private side of David Lee Roth, how you can drop out so successfully for 3 years. Because I mean, like I said, it was unusually low profile this time.
Well, it always struck me, Redbeard, that a lot of people, you know, are dealing from an ego kind of standpoint here. That ego, you give her a little fix, man, you know, you get some attention. Next thing you know, she's screaming at you from inside, oh, I gotta have more. You know, and you take that away. A lot of artists are very destituted. They despair from that. And I've never had a problem with separating myself from it. That's not to say I'm any different. I don't talk any differently when I'm not in the public eye. I dress like this, yes, all the time. Yes, I drive that car all the time to the 7-Eleven and back.
And you've got the parking tickets to prove it.
Absolutely.
Everybody awake now? Vaccinated by a phonograph needle. What a great line. That's the first single and title track from David Lee Roth's new album, A Little Ain't Enough. That line, vaccinated with a phonograph needle, made me wonder about some of the people who inoculated young David Lee's soul with rock and roll.
Well, it's a twofold thought there, Redbeard, in that the lyric goes, I was vaccinated with a phonograph needle one summer break. And that sounds like philosophy. That's poetry. But then it goes, and then I kissed her on her daddy's boat and shot across the lake. Hey, let's be 12 years old again. Well, the bands that gave me that poetic sense, that spirit sense that vaccinated me, oh, wow, the first time you heard Honky Tonk Woman, the first time you heard those opening riffs of Brown Sugar, the first time you heard that opening riff of Heartbreaker by Led Zeppelin, and the first time you heard the guy in ZZ Top go, how, how, and then went back through the library when somebody told you where he got that from and started listening to the Howlin' Wolves and Otis Rush and all these people, you know. Yeah, that vaccinated me.
Well, if these people vaccinated David Lee Roth with an incurable case of rock and roll, he also picked up a passion for adventure along the way. As we heard a little earlier, Roth loves to get away in his downtime, which has led him to become quite an adventure traveler of sorts.
Well, adventure traveler sounds like kind of a rock and roll description. I think the medical term is fun hog.
That's the medical term.
And there are a lot of things that I do.
I forget these. I've been out of school too long. Fun hog, of course. That's what I meant.
I'm terminally enthusiastic, and I do it all, Redbeard. I'm not good at most of it, but I do it all. You know, it doesn't matter to me if I'm the guy with the big hat and the baton up in the front of the parade, or if I'm the guy with the cymbals in the back. Maybe the back is better if you think about it. Kind of a rock kind of vibe, you know. But when I get my breaks off from the studio and the basement and rehearsal and the video bay, most of my time goes in that. So when I do get a break for more than 2-3 days, let's go to the farthest fifth corner of the world.
What are some of the stickers we would find on your luggage?
A couple of buddies of mine, Mike Weiss and Dave Brashears. Dave is the only American who made it twice to the top of Everest. We went to the Himalayas, and we did a big peak up there. We got up to about 22,000 feet and fought the Arctic blast, and
Are you serious?
lived
22,000 feet?
Yeah, we were working on a glacier right across from the valley from Everest. We were up there for about a month and a half. Woo, cold, 40 below. And
I think you have invented a new genre of rock and roll with the song 40 Below. I think we have cryogenic rock and roll.
Well, everybody talks about how hot they are. I'm so hot. That show was steaming. How was the show last night? It was hot. How's he playing it? Oh, he's hot, man. Does that guy sing good? Yeah, he sings hot. He's hot, man. This guy's hot. Is he cooking? Yeah, he's hot. He's cooking. Oh, it's just steaming, everything. I said, wait a minute. If you're truly bad, you're cold, man. You're cold. How cold are you? 40 below. That's right, Feel me whipping out your window, licking around your knees. Maybe I drop below zero. I'm talking 40 degrees, and take one good look at my Arctic blast. Tell everybody to kiss my ass. Because I'm 40 below. Whether or not this is reality is beside the point. I have to think this way.
It is a rip-snorting rock and roll song.
Yeah, and if you listen to the outro at the end and you hear those little Betty Boop kind of things, it goes, ooh, I'm cold, baby, like that. Pick that thing up from Wizard of Oz and goes, I'm melting. Yeah, you're a horrible, horrible girl.
We've just scratched the surface on this one. Make sure you're here when we continue with this exclusive world premiere of David Lee Roth's A Little Ain't Enough.
Vaccinated with a phonograph needle indeed. Welcome back to the world premiere of A Little Ain't Enough. Yours truly, David Lee, right here with Redbeard.
Thanks, David. So far, we've heard a couple of scorchers from A Little Ain't Enough, the new album from David Lee Roth. Maybe it's time we slowed the tempo down just a bit with the sultry Tell the Truth. David, why don't you set this one up for us?
I had just broken up with a girlfriend of mine, and come on, why would you have a divorce? All divorces have sharp edges to them. Otherwise, you wouldn't break up. It's not like, God, I love you, honey, you love me? Yeah, well, let's break up. It doesn't go like that. There's sharp edges left behind, and that's what you get from Tell the Truth. It's very sad. And there's some sharp edges there. It's like, I don't want to be sad. It's not right that I should be sad in this single case. And that's what you get from the lyric. And the beat is the same thing. Dum, 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 dum. It's insistent, even though it's dark and moody, but it's insistent. And there is, like the lyric says, I try to tell you, babe, you didn't want to hear me. Well, take one good look. These are tears of fury. Very few people address an emotion like this in popular songwriting. Either they are completely sad or they're completely angry. But very few people address it direct, the combination and say, hey, I'm sad and this ain't right.
Written with a broken heart. That's David Lee Roth with Tell the Truth from David Lee's new CD, A Little Ain't Enough. Last time around, Roth produced himself on 1988's album Skyscraper. This time, David and company made the trek up to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, to record with Bob Rock, one of today's most highly regarded producers. Now, Skyscraper was very clean sounding, and with that in mind, I asked David Lee Roth to characterize the sonics of his new effort, A Little Ain't Enough.
Flesh, metal, and glass. Lead with your face, boys. It was designed to be as raw and as spill all over your little CD player and steam as much as possible. It's very live. It's very off the deck. Whereas Skyscraper, which I produced, was designed to be a science experiment. Let's take all these little bits and pieces of ideas that we've been collecting over the seasons, and let's build a Frankenstein. I don't know if he's going to terrorize the innocent villagers. Maybe he'll never even leave the castle, but at least we tried. So, yeah. This album is my driving wheel. My driving wheel has always been blues rock, the blues, rhythm and blues, whether it's Motown or whether it's ZZ Top, Led Zeppelin, Eric Clapton, these kinds of things. I got a couple new guitar players in this band. Got a rhythm guitar, which, is not such a striking new idea, but for me it's the first time in quite some time. And the idea there was, let's skip the overdubs. Let's get it right off the deck. Let's take it right from the killing floor, okay? For better or worse. And sometimes it's worse, and that's perfect. I don't know what your best favorite pair of blue jeans looks like. Oh. They ain't perfect, are they? No. But they're perfect. Well, then why should your favorite rock and roll be any different? There's got to be some flailing elbows to it. There's got to be some knees, and some trouble to it. And that gives it character. There's little flaws here and there. The sound spills around. It's not perfectly refined. It's not perfectly scientific. And that is very human.
Drop in the bucket from David Lee Roth's new CD called A Little Ain't Enough. When we come back, we'll find out why the David Lee Roth Band has a new lineup. I'm Redbeard, and we'll be right back with more of our exclusive world premiere of A Little Ain't Enough from David Lee Roth.
Hey, heard you missed us? Well, we're back, and welcome back to the world premiere of A Little Ain't Enough. Yours truly, David Lee, right here with Redbeard, direct from Hollywood after 2 months of no work, and we're just a paradise on a roll.
You got it, Dave. On A Little Ain't Enough, Diamond Dave wrote with 11 different co-writers. Now, most of these were band members, but Roth also wrote with some outsiders, like Robbie Neville, for instance. During our conversation, David Lee explained how he hooked up with some of these writers, such as former Dio guitarist Craig Goldie.
Now, I got a lot of tapes from publishing houses, sending me songs before we, went and recorded this album. I chose none of them, but I did find some excellent songwriters to work with. I get a song in the mail. It sounds like a cross between Steve Winwood meets the fourth lineup of the Allman Brothers, and they're trying to do Jamie's Crying in a surf kind of fashion or whatever. Oh, wrong. 18 degrees to the east of wrong. Oh, man, but I heard something in that right hand of the guitar player. Something because of chunk, chunk, chunk. There's something in there. So I called him up, and I said, Craig, I liked your music, it was good. I don't think it's right for me. Hey, that's a good way to put it. Huh? And I says, but you know what? I don't know if this just didn't sound. Are you into this kind of music? Well, Dave, tell you the truth, not really, but I thought you might be. Well, Craig, I want to ask you a question. How about if you don't think about me at all and you put some things on tape that you really love? Okay, because I hear something in your hands there that's different from what you sent me on tape. And then, oh, wow, now we got Lady Luck. And it's just having to kind of look through what people are playing and see what somebody's good at, and help them to bring that along,
Talking about a lady that we all hope will visit us frequently. That's Lady Luck from David Lee Roth's new album, A Little Ain't Enough. David has developed quite a reputation for having a keen eye and ear for developing talent, particularly phenomenal guitarists such as Eddie Van Halen and Steve Vai. Let's get a general rundown of the current lineup of the David Lee Roth Band.
I like to keep it fresh. I want to keep it something new. I think there's people who are eminently qualified to kick butt in the studio, but they just don't quite serve it up on stage. There are people who do it great on stage. You never want to put a microphone in front of them connected to a tape recorder. So I changed around from, the people that I composed with, that I recorded with. Have some characters in on the live show. I don't think you're going to know too many of them. Joey Holmes on the guitar. I got Desi Rex rhythm guitar. Todd Jensen on bass guitar. I got Greg Bissonette, who's been with me on drums for the past few tours. Brett Tuggle on keyboards, who I wrote a handful of the songs with. I wrote with a number of different people. But this is a different gang than I recorded with. I found somebody in the studio for the studio, rather, a fellow named Jason Becker. He's about 20 years old, was 20 years old, up in Northern California, a little shreddy Kruger, and he's up there just burning and churning and got the hot new gunslinger. Man, he's quick and sharp, but sometimes he might miss. I used to when I was 20 years old, so I got the preacher. I've found a blues man, Steve Hunter, who's been playing blues for 25 years. Played with B.B. King, Eric Clapton. He ghost played guitar solos on the first Aerosmith album. He's the one who played the guitar, wrote the stuff for Salisbury Hill, Peter Gabriel, and on and on. Preacher, he's a little bit slower, but he never misses. So if you're going to pack hog legs, you can't beat the two. It sounds like an Italian Western, doesn't it?
Featuring a real live, honest-to-goodness horn section that's called Shoot It from David Lee Roth. Now, there's plenty more where that came from, so be sure and stick around when we return with more of this exclusive world premiere of David Lee Roth's A Little Ain't Enough.
Hey, David Lee Roth right here, and I guess there ain't much distance between a pat on the back and a kick in the pants, so let's dance. Yours truly, David Lee Roth, right here on the world premiere of A Little Ain't Enough with Redbeard.
Thank you, Dave. If there's one thing we can say about David Lee Roth is that he exudes fun. Indeed, his whole lifestyle reeks of happy-go-luckiness. But believe it or not, there is a serious side to David Lee Roth as well, and it shows colors on A Little Ain't Enough in the form of a tune called The Dogtown Shuffle. With its commentary on life in the streets, I remarked to David that the Dogtown Shuffle is, in a sense, 1981's Mean Streets revisited.
Yes, it is. And this is where I was living for the better part of half a year while we were up making the record. And this is where I ride my bicycle through when we're on tour. And this is where we play when we're on tour. And this is what most people live. This is what's really on the streets. This is what you see on CNN. This is what you get off the front page of the newspaper. So you do the Dogtown Shuffle. I know you talk the talk. Let's see you walk the walk. Because there's so many people out there going to sing about this kind of thing, and all they did was get it off the screen from CNN. They didn't experience jack. They didn't inveigle any of that. It's just a projection.
Or at the most, if they didn't get it off of the television, they went fashionably slumming on a Friday or Saturday night down to the warehouse district and called that living it on the streets.
There you go.
And you're right. It's just not the same thing when that's your address, is it?
No, it's not. And it's like the wild boys go head to head, and like the good book says, be quick or dead. That's how most people live. That is how most people experience life out in the streets now. And it's, they don't all live in refrigerator cartons, but it's what we experience at the job place, at the workplace. It's what we experience at the local airport. It's what you experience at the local cafeteria. And it wasn't meant to be a very friendly song at all. Towards the end, even though there's a few little lines in there that can be construed as humorous, hey, there goes the neighborhood. Yeah, well, a lot of them are going. A lot of them are going currently, even as we speak. And yeah, we can address that, but we don't have to sound sad about it. There's many different kinds of ways to smile and deal with these subjects. You can deal with city life a la Tracy Chapman, and then NWA deals with it in a very different fashion.
You're doing the Dogtown Shuffle from A Little Ain't Enough, the brand new CD from David Lee Roth. Now, I ask you, what would a David Lee Roth album be without a little good, clean controversy? Well, not only did he upset the city of Vancouver authorities with a somewhat racy painting on the outside wall of the recording studio, Roth also got his record company nervous with the original title and album cover artwork for this new album.
I had come up with an album cover. It was a picture of a gal sitting against an airplane, and the airplane was in the background. It looked like a B-17 bomber, but it had like a human face on the front of the cockpit. It wasn't human, but it looked human. And she was sitting in the front in a little see-through negligee with a pair of scissors. And the name of the album was Cutting Out. So I guess the question in the censor's mind was, exactly what was she cutting. So the sensors are particularly riled, particularly sensitive these days. And I don't know, for something like that, it's not like I'm making a political statement. It's not like my career is based on, oh, Jesus, you didn't like this picture. There's a million other pictures that we could pick, And, getting serious here for a second, censorship is an insidious, corrosive thing. It's something that works from the inside out, and you don't even know that it's working frequently. People talk about, well, you want to, get a label on your record. And these, used to say, hey, if you get a label on your record, it means 100,000 more sales. Well, that might have been more true, a year or two ago. But nowadays, you get a label on your record, a lot of stores don't stock it. Now, if I have a particular message or something particular that I want to get over to the public, no, I'm not going to change that. But in terms of a simple picture on an album cover, who cares? Come on, I can express myself any number of ways.
Ugly and mean. That's Hammerhead Shark, the phrase that David Lee Roth likes to use to describe the very embodiment of evil. But when it comes to good, clean fun, a little ain't enough in 91. We'll continue with our exclusive world premiere of David Lee Roth's A Little Ain't Enough.
Yeah, and I was vaccinated with a phonograph needle. Woo! Welcome back to the world premiere of A Little Ain't Enough. Yours truly, David Lee. Woo! Flying free with Redbeard.
Thank you, David. In listening to David Lee Roth's new album, it doesn't take long to realize that you only get to slow down to catch your breath twice. On the steamy Tell the Truth, which we heard a little earlier, and on Sensible Shoes, a catchy little ditty powered by a guitar sound made famous by Creedence Clearwater Revival. I asked David if he had that familiar twangy guitar sound in mind when he wrote Sensible Shoes.
Well, the bulk of the song came from my pal Preston Sturgis. And when it came to me, it was just in very junk kind of guitar sort of a thing. I said, hey, we have to lift this a little bit because I hear elements of Creedence Clearwater. I hear some Little Feat in here. I hear some Eric Clapton in here. There's a little ZZ Top in there, And it's how can we mix this all together because it's a very down-home kind of feel. It was recorded that way. You're hearing third take all the way across there, But, the lyric of it is perfectly personal. I got a fast car, go cruising down the highway. I do it my way, So how come I walk around with the blues? The gypsy woman told me, you need some sensible shoes, What kind of sensible shoes? What's he talking about? Sensible shoes, ones that'll lead me back to you, baby. Like that. You make a little play on that.
Sensible Shoes, the kind that'll lead me back to you. That's from David Lee Roth's new CD, A Little Ain't Enough. At this point, we've had a chance to hear most of A Little Ain't Enough, and I'm sure the question on just about everybody's mind is, will David Lee Roth tour to support the album? And the answer is, just try and stop him.
Touring is my drive. Touring is where it all starts. Everything else is a hobby. I love travel. I love playing live on stage. Everything I do on record is a representation of what I do live on stage. I love to see the people, So there ain't enough countries for me to go to. Last tour, we did some 20 countries like that. We're going to do the same thing. There's 22 countries, something like that. You bet. And living on the road is an art because when you are continually nowhere specific, that becomes your somewhere. And you have to learn to live out there. How do you deal with restaurants? How do you deal with hotels? How do you deal with airports and on and on and on? A lot of people, revile against this. Oh, I don't want to go on the road. It's isolation. But I live and breathe this in the most classic tradition. It's that you get out and you get to see the world. I always perceived of rock and roll as a passport. Let this take me everywhere. And then I'll have more things to write about and I'll go even further.
Any clues as to what toys you'll be bringing along on the road? You don't have to give it all away, but you've surfed in on these like 28 to 30-foot surfboards. You've had a regulation size boxing ring drop down in the middle of your audience crowds and stuff. What are you going to do for an encore? A little ain't enough, you know. A little ain't enough.
Without giving away the show, yes, it's going to be of epic proportions, and I think the Latin term is gymongous. Gymongous spectacle.
At just slightly under 1 million beats a minute, it's showtime. Wow, I'm Redbeard, and we'll be right back to our exclusive world premiere of A Little Ain't Enough, the brand new one from David Lee Roth. That's a wrap on A Little Ain't Enough, the world premiere special. I'm Redbeard, thanking that rascal of rock and roll, David Lee Roth, for entertaining us thoroughly. Thanks to Pete Angeles, Eddie Anderson, and Jackie at Diamond Dave Enterprises, Kenny Pavogel and Dan Nathanson at Warner Brothers Records, Tommy Nash, Lex Staley, Donna Geisinger, Neil Bird, and Vanessa Rocky at Album Network. Thanks to Steve Saslow and Jude Brody at SJS in New York City and Carl Ross at Sound Source Toronto. Special thanks to Mark Didia. The David Lee Roth A Little Ain't Enough world premiere is a Bullet production produced by yours truly Redbeard and Jim Nelson. Written by Jim Nelson. Transcription by Darlene Sizer. Editing and post-production by Rick R.J. Lane. Executive producer Stephen R. Smith.
All right, let us know if you enjoyed that show. Call Valerie at 212-955-WNEW. It is Dano's Late Show on the radio. Some great new music from Diamond Dave.